Good evening, keep it up the cash. Gary B, the casual comic guy here, and tonight we're going to have a nice fun show. It's always fun whenever we have our guest on, but before we introduce him, always introduce my co-host first. We got Digger Jim down below, and joining us also this evening, Caroline.
Oh,
What?
we go like
I'm
this.
on vacation now. I'm on vacation.
Oh boy.
She,
Wasn't supposed to be here today.
She sent me a text and she's like, look, I need to get on there in case John tries any of his bullshit. I need to call him on it. So,
Look,
no.
it's gone unchecked for far too long.
Right.
And this regulatory body is here to fucking set some boundaries.
Do it.
Right?
I need it.
Watch yourself.
Honestly, how I live my life, Caroline, is women telling me what to do is in my entire
Get
world.
fucking used to it.
I am. I'm so used to it.
Yeah, you don't have enough women over on your side, right?
Right. Yep. Running low.
Right? Oh, goodness. John, how are you this evening, sir?
I am doing really well now that I'm here. I had to give a cat a bath tonight, and so I am bleeding in several different places I wasn't planning, but
brother,
I'm here.
He may pass out from blood loss, but he's here right now.
Right?
He's good to go.
If he faints, we'll just give him a few minutes for his blood sugar to get back up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There
That
you
feline scurvy might set in. We'll find out.
Right.
He's sitting right here. Don't you be saying some bullshit.
I love my cat. She's just not happy with me right now.
Thank you.
Yeah, the good thing about animals is they get over it really quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
they need to be fed.
After that first feeding, they're fine.
All right, so let's say before we get asking you questions tonight, John, let's get to our crowd like we usually do, and then we'll have you introduce yourself. We're going to go a little bit different. We'll say hi first because we were bullshitting. We'll say hi to them, then we'll get back to you. First in, as always, Las Cruces, reclaiming his top spot after Madam Stephanie unseated him for the 10-1-1 the other day. Perry Gaiman, how you doing tonight, sir? Stephanie, good evening. Kevin, how you doing tonight, sir? Nice to see you. White Tiger, cool, calm, collected. How you doing tonight, Ruby G?
He used to be my LCS homie. We had the same
Scotty
LCS
Vaughn,
before
good
he
evening,
moved
sir.
up
How
north.
are you? Izzyverse, how you doing? Right. Jerry the Jitterbug, one of my favorite people. I always got to say it. How you doing, Jerry? Paul, how you doing tonight, sir? And help. Good evening. Bonjour. Steve White, good evening, Steve. Nice to see you, sir. And if you guys haven't checked out a few weeks ago, Steve had a great 10-1-1 episode. Caroline's in the chat harassing them equally. And, of course, Jason, Southern Comic Geek, who we have to get on for a second installment of the 10-1-1.
Oh, yeah. You got to give him a tough time. He's not one to crack too easily.
Exactly. So, John, before we get going with the questions, who are you? And what's your channel about, sir?
So yeah, I'm John. John's Comics with Kids. I basically it's just been a chance on YouTube to goof with my daughters. As you know, they've gone from adorable 8-year-olds to teenagers. We've been able to kind of explore their joys in reading and comics and movies and TV and things that they're getting exposed to as they get a little older and able to try watching some of the stuff that meant a lot to us when we were kids. So that's been the real core of my YouTube channel, hanging out on Saturdays with the girls. Are you already putting shade out at Southern Comic Geek?
I'm just trying to keep people in their place.
They need it. I'm a teacher, and so a lot of my Instagram, YouTube stuff is usually me either cutting loose or trying to educate a little bit and spread some information out in the world. I'm a big X-Men fan, so you'll get a lot of X-Men related stuff with me. I'm also a big Green Lantern fan, so a lot of that joy going around as well.
Nice. Okay, so let's just get right into it. So the way this show differs, obviously, from the 10-1-1 is this is an interview show. So we're 10-1. We learn about you through your books. In this show, we learn about how you got into the books and what's kept you in the hobby throughout your life and what it's meant. So with that, we always get a couple of the basic questions out of the way at first. And what got you into comics?
So I grew up in a very like male household. I had two brothers and my dad. They were really into sports. They were really into all the typical guy stuff. So I was the middle child. Instantly had to pick a different direction, and that usually became creative outlets. I did theater. I made movies. I did anything to be different. Are you a theater gal as well?
No. I was theater adjacent.
There you go. And then, and part of that was reading. I loved books. I was the kid in junior high reading Peter Benchley's Jaws at the beach for summer vacation fun reading.
Wow.
And then, yeah, comics were just became part of that, and D&D and all that kind of stuff. So I remember my earliest memories of my grandmother, my mom's mom, was going to her place in the mountains in Pine Top, Arizona. And there was a Circle K with a spinner rack, like walking distance from her cabin. And we would get some change from my mom every day I could get it from her. And I'd walk down and pick something new off the spinner rack every time. And this was when Uncanny was probably in the early 200s of the issues. And they were doing some of those great reprints of Hulk 181 and Giant Size. Classic X-Men was dropping. ASM was doing some great stuff too. And I would buy a ton of that kind of stuff.
Good time to be alive.
Yes,
Well,
ma'am.
I don't know about you, man, but when I was a kid and I would walk into a place and I saw a spinner rack, the heart started beating a little quicker. It was like instant excitement as soon as you saw that spinner rack. You didn't care what your parents were doing in that thing. You were at the spinner rack until they
Right.
Yeah. I couldn't buy enough comic stuff when I was there. Thankfully, my older brother was in it a little bit too. So we could split our choices up. You know, if I bought X-Men, he'd buy X Factor, whatever. We would be able to get, and then we'd swap, right, and read each other's books.
Right.
Cover
Hey,
the spread.
at least you had a sibling to do that with. That's awesome.
Yeah. My younger brother could care less, but my older brother was in.
But see, that's the great thing about
Well, you know, they can't all be cool, John.
No, they can't. In my family, it's just one out of three.
Over here. You know, so when you were young, I got to know, obviously you were watching the 90s X-Men, but what other cartoons was little Johnny watching?
He was way into G.I. Joe. So like Real American Hero was the jam. And I've seen every episode. I will say I tried to rewatch them at the height of COVID because they threw them for free on YouTube. You could watch free G.I. Joe. Did not hold up. Did not hold up for me.
No.
I was like 20 minutes into the first episode, and I was like, "This is not going to go. I don't know if I'm ever going to get past this one episode."
You know, even I was probably a little bit older than you when G.I. Joe came on, and I was just, even then, I was still laughing that there was 100 laser guns being shot, and, not
And
one
no
person
one's
getting
getting
hit.
it.
I mean, these are the worst trained soldiers I've ever seen in my life.
Right.
They have aim like stormtroopers. It really is true.
Right.
That's what we need, though. We need a parody of G.I. Joe and Cobra fighting stormtroopers and nobody getting
Ooh.
shot.
Right?
They just all collapse from exhaustion at the end of the day. We'll try again tomorrow.
At the same time, though, I think the comics for G.I. Joe really hold up. Like, I think that those are like fun. Like, characters legit die in the original run of G.I. Joe. Like, people get shot, there's blood, people die. Like, it's cool. Like, I thought the original run of G.I. Joe is still really good.
Didn't they wait a minute to break that seal? Or did it
They did. Yes. They had characters that seemingly died and we didn't see what happened. And then, but then like there was an issue where they killed like 5 guys in one issue.
And then after that, it was just like no holds barred.
Exactly.
Well, G.I. Joe, you know, unfortunately back then, and if you remember, a bunch of cartoons like instantly went off the air because Nancy Reagan had her kids thing going.
Right.
And every cartoon had to have a positive message, or you couldn't air it. So creative freedom was gone, completely squashed, and that's why you had The More You Know. And after He-Man, you had a little lesson. So they skirted it by having the lessons, but then also there was no real consequences because you couldn't have anything ultra violent because of Nancy Reagan's act.
Yeah.
And you know I'm gonna hold it against her because that's why Thundar went off the air, and it was the most popular cartoon at the time.
You know, I think you should probably write a comic about how Nancy Reagan is like the ultimate supervillain.
It's the Saturday morning cartoons.
Because I would buy it.
Oh Lord.
No,
Teeny lovely lady.
there were some great cartoons in that era. I enjoyed He-Man and I enjoyed Transformers. And then obviously later into the 90s, you started getting animated series, Batman, Spider-Man, X-Men.
I know Jim was a big Monchichis guy, so.
Yeah. All up on the Monchichi. You know what's funny is there was I want to say it's like 5 a.m. and I was getting ready to go to work, and I had to be there at 6, and there's nothing on at 5 a.m. But I'm flipping the channel, and the Centurions are on. Have you ever heard of the Centurions?
I have not.
Yes.
Gary B knows. They were like the first version of Iron Man, and it was like 3 guys, and they all had different. One was like a Navy, the other one was Air Force, the other one was like the Army. And they wore these suits, and they would beam down like weapons on them. And one could like literally just fly and shoot rockets. One was in a sub. Like, it was crazy. And I was like, This is pretty good. And then they disappeared. I think they did like 1 season, and then that was the end of it.
We all finally remember the Hanna-Barbera cartoons, but most of them were only 1 season too. But they were so permeated into your memory, like for some reason though they just didn't last. Like even thinking back, because Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends was one of my favorites in childhood. Of course that one doesn't really hold up either when you watch it, Tori, but I still love it, guys. Just nostalgia.
Firestar and Iceman. I
mean I have both of Firestar's first appearances, her first appearance and her first appearance in continuity, because I've loved that character ever since. But Miss Lion, the dog. But the thing with that is, as a child, you remember, oh, wow, that show was on for a while. And then as an adult, you see, oh, it lasted 13 episodes. like some things just...
They just kept rerunning those 13 over and over.
Right.
Okay, the know-it-all John says there were 2 seasons of the Centurions. I stand corrected.
There you go.
Actually,
you guys remind me of one that I watched that I can't remember what the acronym stood for, but it was Mask, M-A-S-K. And there were like all these cool cars, and I had all the toys for that. The drivers were all kind of like cool looking. They had these helmets that you would wear.
That was a little after my time, Mask, but it seemed to be really popular.
Yeah, I remember digging that one.
All right, so now we've got a little bit of the cartoons. Were you also watching back in the day, like the Incredible Hulk, Wonder Woman, the really bad Captain America movies that were on TV with the clear plastic shield?
I saw those.
So, Linda Carter and I go back. Obviously top tier individual. Like I absolutely loved that show. The original Linda Carter Wonder Woman is the tip of the spear, man. That's just great stuff. I enjoyed the Hulk, but it didn't have a beautiful woman spinning in circles, so it didn't rank as high for me as Wonder Woman did. I did watch Batman's, Burt Ward, Adam West. I did watch the classic Batman, and that might be partly why I get like everybody's like, no, Batman's got to be dark. I'm like, hey, you got there's eras of Batman.
Right, he doesn't have to be.
It can be shenanigans funny. I still think Batman Forever is a whole lot of a fun movie. Like, it's a very enjoyable Batman movie. It's just not Dark Knight.
It's someone else's Batman for some people.
Right.
The Batman I grew up with did not dress in black. He dressed in like bright blue, had a giant yellow logo, and then had light gray. Like he was not.
That is my favorite Batman outfit to this day.
It's
the old Brave
ridiculous
and the Bold
and
Batman
funny.
outfit.
There's clearly no bulletproof on any of it, right? But it looks fantastic in comic book form. That was definitely for me, the DC was more prevalent live action when I was a kid. I did watch the Hulk, but did not like the Cap. Sorry.
Oh yeah, the Captain. I watched the Captain. Well, and there was even a 1970s Doctor Strange TV movie.
I heard about it, and didn't it have wasn't like Thor in it and stuff? Or was that the Hulk? That was the second Hulk movie.
It had Thor, and I think the black suit Daredevil at the time too. Like,
Yeah.
it was really bad.
Yeah.
But
But that Doctor Strange, I think I saw it
wasn't good
once.
either.
Yeah.
He was fighting Morgan Le Fay.
Yeah.
Morgana Le Fay, yeah. So, but I mean, it was a complete 70s outfit. So there was bell bottoms, all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
I like it.
And then they remember Full Moon Studios, right? They couldn't make a Doctor Strange movie because they don't own the rights, so they made a Dr. Mordred,
Yeah.
which is their Doctor Strange movie,
That's funny.
and that's fun. And it has I always forget his name, the Reanimator actor.
Oh,
I
crap.
don't know his
Someone
name.
in the chat help me out. I know, like he's so popular, and every time I go to say his name, I blank on it.
I know other useless information, not this useless.
Right? Oh yeah.
I love who said it in the chat. Steve White. Steve White said Linda Carter is and will always be
Captain Caveman. Now he was funny.
Bruce Abbott?
Caveman.
Yeah, that was a funny show.
Oh, Jeffrey.
Jeffrey Combs?
Yes, thank you. Part of it came to me. You got the other part. But
I've even shown the live action Wonder Woman original stuff to my girls, and as much as they giggle at it, they're still like, "This is kind of fun." And I know they tried to stick the landing on it in Wonder Woman 84, and it just did not work. Some of that stuff just doesn't update, but I still think Joel Schumacher did his best with Batman Forever, and it's fun. It's stupid, but it's fun.
Right. I agree. But Linda Carter, going back to that, also on that show, one of the catchiest theme songs ever, even though it changed season to season a little. It was, as soon as you heard, you were like, you were already hyper as a kid. Right?
Okay, do some quick trivia. Who was Wonder Girl?
No,
Who played Wonder Girl?
I'm going to fail at all of this.
I can see her too. Well,
Come on, she's a like a, I don't know if she won an Academy Award or not, but she's a. Come on, people.
Valerie Bertinelli.
No, Deborah Winger.
Deborah Winger was Wonder Girl. That's amazing.
Deborah Winger. I call her Wonder Girl
because Deborah Winger. That sounds weird.
She was the first one to come over from Paradise Island and help her out.
Oh, well,
did they actually call her? Did they call her Donna Troy, or did they just give her?
No. I don't think they called her. I can't remember if they called her Donna Troy or not. But she did spin and get her own little outfit. So I thought that was the closest thing we're gonna have to a Wonder Girl type thing.
Yeah. Nominee for an officer and a gentleman.
Yeah, there you go.
I agree, Chuck. Sorry, not Chuck. Steve White. It is a hot mess, 84. But I have a little bit of. I can enjoy the silly ridiculousness of it. Like that sequence in the Invisible Jet still cracks me up when I'm trying to fly the Invisible Jet. It's funny. Oh, but 84 is a tragedy.
It's.
Well, I think the part with that is they tried to keep They tried to put too much in, and
yes.
It's still completely watchable because Gal Gadot has so much charisma as Wonder Woman.
Right.
But
and Linda Carter cameo.
Right. But who could have thought there'd be two actresses that played Wonder Woman that were that perfect for the role? Because she embodies when Gal Gadot's on the screen as Wonder Woman,
yes,
it's perfect. Yes. When Linda Carter's on the screen as Wonder Woman, it's perfect. And
perfect cast.
That was my father's support for us comic. When he said, "Oh, you like comic books? I got some for you." I was like, "What is it?" He pulls up this big Wonder Woman poster and says, "Here, we'll put it up on the wall." And I was like, yeah, we know you got that." John and I both were like, "Yeah, okay,
yeah,
we
know that's for you." And you're not
wasn't it
anybody.
Kathy? I might be remembering this wrong. Was it Kathy Lee Crosby that played Wonder Woman? Like a pilot before the Linda Carter one?
Yeah. It was trash.
Yeah.
It was trash.
You didn't know that, John?
Crime. That's a crime.
Yeah, it was bad. Wow. It was, and she had like this full, pantsuit on or something.
That's
it was
hilarious.
Yeah, it's trash. Don't even bother.
And Ian, what's going on, Ian?
No, wait, Tacoma Comics, is that what they call it? Charisma. Yeah, who had a lot of charisma back then too was Aaron Graham, Buck Rogers.
Yeah.
To your point, Gary B, as far as casting of Wonder Woman, you feel like this is a character that is difficult to cast and that two people could really nail it is amazing. I think the same could be said of it's the amazing amount of people that they've had play Superman and how all of them have worked in their own right.
Right.
Like they really haven't blown it casting a bad Superman. You may not love Brandon Routh or whatever,
No,
but like
Brandon
I think
Routh
they've
was a
all
good
done.
Superman. He wasn't the problem with that.
It's amazing how well the over the years they've done at casting that role over and over again.
looks like James Gunn is just doppelgangered the last one. He just
if he's able to do it and save the money,
he's just doing it to Kingdom Come him. I'm on to Cavill for the Kingdom Come.
I will say I'm ecstatic over the casting of Lois because I love Rachel Brosnahan. If you have not watched The Marvelous Miss Maisel, that show is phenomenal, and she's
all episodes, brother.
Yeah.
All episodes. I thought it
So
ended
good.
well. I thought it ended tastefully.
Yeah. And she is freaking Lois Lane. Like if that movie sucks, it will not be her fault. She will nail that part.
It'll be
and I do
Gary's
want to go
fault.
back to that with Brandon Routh because that was not his fault. He was a good Superman, but you put him in a Superman movie where Superman doesn't even throw a punch. That's not on Brandon Routh.
Correct.
And then you gave him that creepy scene where he's using his X-ray vision to spy on his girlfriend in her house. That's not with her guy. It's like
not a good look.
Like, how are we getting this?
Yeah. No, you can't blame the actor for a bad script. It's kind of what happened with Wonder Woman 84.
Right. He deserved more Superman, Brandon Routh did.
Correct. Yeah, Rachel Brosnahan is perfect. Absolutely agree, Joe. Absolutely agree.
With the stuff that you've always been into in your life in comics, and we're not even to the comics yet. We're still talking about stuff you liked when you were young. So, as an adult, and you have your daughters, what is the nostalgic property that you loved as a childhood, that was a childhood favorite, that you've connected with the most over your daughters with, that they also liked? Was there a big crossover thing that they liked it? You're like, oh my gosh, my daughters like this thing I liked when I was young?
I will tell you, it is not X-Men. I can tell you that with a fact.
That breaks my heart.
Storm and Jean Grey?
Not a one of my girls is like in love with X-Men comics. Not a single one will have it. Not a single one. It's probably Batman the Animated Series. Like my youngest is obsessed and has seen every episode probably 10 times. Like when she was homesick the other day, feeling awful, she just had a portable DVD player and the animated series discs and was just plowing through it in bed and was like, this is the best. She had COVID and she was like, had to be isolated. And all she asked for was the stack of DVDs for Batman the Animated Series and her portable player. And then we had to shove food under the door. And that was she was living her best life right there.
There you go.
So that's probably the one that we all really love. And at any point, if it's like comfort watch time, we could easily put on an episode of that and absolutely all be ecstatic about it.
There you
go.
go.
I also liked, I don't know if you watch this with your girls, the Wonder Woman animated movie that had Carrie Russell voice in her was really good.
So I've really struggled and I really need to get better at diving into the DC animated universe beyond, say, Batman, because really I have not even tackled a ton of those movies that everybody says are great, that they've adapted a lot of their comics beautifully into animated form. I've watched so little.
Well, yeah, there's just not enough time. You got to pick and choose.
It's true.
Yeah.
But we've done a little bit of Batman Beyond. We did Batman Beyond and then the original animated series and then some of the films like Taylor mentioned, Phantasm or Return of the Joker, things like that. But as far as like beyond that core, like Batman animated universe, have not tackled a ton of the other stuff.
Well, if you're a Batman fan too, and you haven't watched Batman the Brave and the Bold cartoon, that was really good actually.
I haven't even done Teen Titans. I haven't even done Teen Titans Go. I love the Teen Titans, and I've never tried Teen Titans Go. My girls have watched some of it and like it, but I have not.
You should watch Young Justice.
It's a good one.
I think they would like it more because it's more updated. You know, I mean, it's all teen driven, and at the beginning they're teen, and then they advance through the seasons as they get older. Some of them get older, and you see them grow. Nice. That's what I liked about it. It's like, holy cow, you know. I mean, so
yeah, I agree, Taylor. Sorry, go ahead.
No. I think that's a good pick.
Mask of the Phantasm is still my favorite Batman movie. If I had to just pick one, it's probably that, just because I think it captures everything I like about that. It's still silly and goofy, but also just like intense. It's got the Tim Burton music. The look is so strong.
Oh yeah. Steve, don't worry, you'll rage unsubscribe him a few times too.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, we're gonna ride that roller coaster together, brother.
No, that was great. And also, so I wanted to get to your X-Men because you can't talk to John about comics and not bring up X-Men.
Okay.
All right. So obviously you like Storm and Wolverine, but where did the X-Men love begin with the animated series, or was it from a comic you first bought and then that transitioned into the animated and kept the love going?
So it was definitely
Chris Claremont's your guy.
Yeah, it was definitely comics first. I distinctly remember buying issues like 201 or 210 from the spinner rack and reading that stuff in the mid 80s before the animated series had even launched. And there were several things I liked. Number one, it was violent. The young John was like, Wolverine's cutting guys up. Whenever he fought Sabretooth, I bought that book. Like you put those two guys on the cover of a comic, John bought it. Like it was guaranteed. Yeah. But also I guess as a kid, I just wanted to see some, I grew up with two brothers beating me up, and it was like, I want to see the violence.
If you're a boy watching cartoons and reading comics, you want to see violence.
Yeah, that was legit. But what is the other thing that same boy wants to see is boobies, and obviously the X-Men ladies dominate. I will legitimately say the best thing about X-Men comics is the female characters. It is the antithesis of, I think, what the Avengers always struggled with early on, which is they put the Wasp on the team and they pushed her to the side and gave her she was always dealing with her hair and what was going on in her
and I was more interested in the Wasp than the other ones.
But then you go to the X-Men and you have Storm, this fully fashioned character dealing with leadership challenges, not based on her race, never really looked at for her race, but really looked at for her ability to lead a team,
social status,
and dynamic covers.
Yeah. And I think her and Rogue, and I always wanted to be Kitty. I always wanted to be the young kid on the team and join the team and be like running with the big kids. I think, Jean obviously was in there as well. But for me, she was like third in line behind Rogue and Kitty and
I like
Storm.
Polaris more
Rogue
than
did not do to me what Rogue did to men. So I'm just saying she was not as high on the list as like Storm and Jean Grey and Kitty were.
Yeah.
But Rogue to me just didn't hit me in the ways that it hit males.
Well, I think because when Rogue started becoming popular, they made her a sex bomb, right? Because early on, if you look at the early appearances of Rogue,
very tomboyish.
She's very tomboyish.
She's
not stacked like they made her later, right?
Yeah.
They changed her look to make her a sex bomb later. And I think Kitty was a great way to have the audience. As an audience, I wanted to be that. I wanted to be the young kid going to the school, joining the team.
Same.
She was a great surrogate, right?
Kitty was all of us, like in a, and I mean, even like she's woven into the fabric of that, like that Weezer song in the garage.
Yeah.
Like Kitty Pride, or I got Kitty Pride and Nightcrawler too. Yes, I do. So,
and she had a great, I don't know if you ever read it, John. Did you ever read that 3-issue miniseries called Pride and Wisdom?
Pride and Wisdom? No, I don't know it.
Yeah, it was, I think it was in the early 2000s. Pride and Wisdom. I think I sent Carolina.
Yeah.
I sent her a set because she had never read it. And I had found an extra set, so I bought it and sent it to her. It's her and it's so good. So she's basically like a
Wonder Man. Pete Wisdom.
Really? Simon, and
is that
Kitty?
right or is that wrong? Or who's the Wisdom guy?
I don't think I read this one.
It was Pete Wisdom, wasn't it?
Yeah, Pete Wisdom.
Huh.
Oh, sorry.
It's good, John. It's a good 3-issue miniseries.
I thought he was.
I just feel like, so for as young John, like I wanted the violence from Wolverine and the cool ladies that I grew to really appreciate their personal struggles. Like Kitty was going through, I could relate to. What Storm was going through, I could appreciate like the challenges that she was dealing with. They were articulated the difficulties of leadership really well in her character.
Now, also, and you're someone I would definitely want to talk to about this. So we've had all these X-Men movies, right?
Yes.
To varying degrees of success, and that just depends on who you are and what you like. Because I find something enjoyable out of all of them. But to me, I would love to see a good grounded story, like not a big world event. I want to see a film based on the X-Men and the Morlocks, something really grounded in. Because I think the Morlocks are very interesting. I think that whole thing is great.
That would be a good like social justice kind of hit some shit. Talk about
That
it.
was the best storytelling, I thought. And even in the cartoon, the Morlocks were great.
Those who live below.
Yeah.
No, the unseen.
And I think X-Men, for me at least, I think are at their best when it's about, I don't want to call them street level characters, but when they're about helping people who are dealing with daily life,
extending
like judgments,
their humanity.
Yeah.
They extend their humanity because they understand what it means to be the other.
The exiled of the world, it's like you have a home here, a shelter here, a place.
X-Men.
Right.
Yeah.
You have a place where you belong.
Right.
And I think those are stories that resonate.
I eat that shit up.
Yeah, I think we just finished the third omnibus on the X-Men show, me and Justin, and it includes God Loves Man Kills, which I still think is the masterpiece of Claremont's era.
Agreed. What a rough opening that has, right?
You start with dead kids. You start with the murder of dead kids, and I think.
They weren't dead when they got murdered. They were dead after, John.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's that. And I think
your technicality,
you're grounding an X-Men universe not in like cosmic battles, but in like daily judgment and strife, right? And that stuff resonates with all of us.
That like they may have superpowers, but they don't feel that super when it comes to like personal interactions.
No, and some of their best
Nightcrawler can't even go out in public and do stuff. Right?
I was just going to bring him up, John. Good one.
You look at somebody who has incredible faith, incredible belief in humanity.
Exactly. He's like one of the most devout people, and he is shunned as a Satan-like abomination.
Except for Amanda Sefton, who is happy to be his hottie on the side. Because shout out to people like Amanda Sefton. Talk about an ally. Amanda Sefton is like kidnapped by by what's his name running the oh god, what's his name, who has the like arcade
yeah,
tortured by Magneto, attacked it by Sentinels, and she still keeps dating him and wants to bang him in the jacuzzi. Ally Amanda Sefton.
Yeah, a Southern comic geek. Exactly, man. No, yeah. I definitely agree with you on that.
And I think that's problems that a lot of these face sometimes, right? Is when you take away what their core struggle is and you try to make it something grander. Everything's got to be a big
it loses the
world-altering event instead of
personal interactions about relationships.
It's harder to write that stuff and sell it, and events sell, right? You can
it's harder to be human.
Inferno, or you call it Trial of Magneto, and you can sell that.
It's hard to be vulnerable, and people want to see it.
Well, and that's the thing, right? Because the X-Men work best, and Nightcrawler is a big factor of this, is when they're empathetic.
Right.
Hell yeah.
And I think this era of X-Men has definitely struggled and been a roller coaster, and I think it's got big ideas and big concepts, but they haven't been able to tap into what Caroline's talking about here, which is the human stories.
Yeah. The common touch.
Well, and they don't fear death anymore because they can just be reborn.
I will say, as a Nightcrawler fan, they had two miniseries surrounding him They did Way of X and then Legion of X, and in those stories they really dealt with this, and Nightcrawler questioning his faith of like, what is faith if you don't ever die? Like what is like, where's the next side?
There we go, boy.
It begins with one of the darkest sequences ever, which is he's training a couple of young new X-Men, a couple of young new mutant characters, and they go out on a thing, and they achieved their ends, but one of these bad guys they're fighting still has his gun, and the kids are telling one of the girls like, you've never had your first? You should try it. You should do it. And they taunt her into dying so that she can be reborn. And you watch Nightcrawler question like how kids view resurrection. Like you haven't popped your cherry yet if you haven't died yet. It's so dark. Like it's such a dark moment. So talk about a human moment, Caroline. Like I read that and I was like, wow. What a deep way to put somebody like Nightcrawler in the position to question morality of resurrection. It was beautiful. It was a great read. Simon Spurrier wrote it, and it was just 10 issues of this maxi series, but it was great.
Now,
but it's not all that. It's some of it's like space and giant robots and stuff.
Well, there's always going to be that element because you do need some fun stuff in there too, right?
And Sentinels.
But like I mean, one of the best things back in the day, and this speaks to the Chris Claremont era, and I want to get to why he's your favorite in a minute. But I mean, look at all the iterations of Storm, how she's developed. You had Mohawk Storm, she was with leader of the Morlocks. She's worn all these different hats. Her character has changed in fundamental ways, and she's advanced and grown as a character. Yeah. And it doesn't seem like character growth is such a big thing as it was back then. Because when Chris was writing them, he was taking those characters on a journey of growth as humans.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And reading it the way I've been with Justin over the last 3 years, going it like step by step and really dissecting it all has been a real eye-opener to long form storytelling, because it really has not ever been that since. Like there's been very few people doing long form storytelling where you can see early on he was setting things up for Storm, setting things up for Colossus, Nightcrawler, whatever, and making these things happen over not just a handful of issues, but like, a few years of the comic. And those loyal people sticking with it, it didn't mean there weren't peaks and valleys, but it meant that your attention to detail was rewarded.
You're emotionally invested.
Oh, absolutely.
Like you you check in, and the ability to get people to check in like that with that level of devotion. Like if you could bag that, but people can't, you just can't recreate that, and it's very rare that you do. And when you do, like fucking enjoy it and ride with it. Stick with
it. Because I mean, Caroline, we're in the binge era, right? Nobody wants to take their time to enjoy that meal over several years. They want that the show. Yeah, the show drops on Friday and you've binged it the whole weekend and you're ready to talk about 20 episodes come Monday. I think it's harder for a writer to do something over several years and have both the editorial and staff at the company, but also your fans stick it out. I mean, Immortal Hulk is the last time I feel like it's really given 25 issues of let's give Ewing a chance to tell a giant story. Right?
Yeah. Immortal Hulk. But speaking of I Want It All Now, I thought when Disney did like WandaVision and released it once a week, like they did old weekly shows, it created that level of anticipation.
Right.
And you talked about it.
Right.
It was a big deal. And
the water cooler talk, right?
Oh, yeah. I loved it, man.
Yeah.
And then you realize, you kind of miss that.
And that ended up biting Netflix in the butt quite a bit, right? Because they put all this production into a show. People would watch it over the weekend, and then 2 weeks later, no one's even talking about it anymore.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think it worked with Loki as well, because I remember like week to week people talking about what's going to happen with Loki. Who's the mystery variant? What's
Falcon
going on?
and Winter Soldier, and
the chat was constantly debating all the little mysteries, all the questions, right?
Well, I remember just waiting in anticipation in Falcon and Winter Soldier when the U.S. agent bloodied the shield. And you're like,
Yeah.
oh my, and then it ends.
Oh,
You're
man.
like, oh my gosh, I can't wait till next week. I got to see
Right?
what's going to happen.
Mhm.
Ending on that moment when the crowd
Right.
is watching him, and you're like, oh crap.
And you can't just key up the next episode and get that instant gratification.
Right?
Yeah.
All week waiting to see it.
Yeah, and so there's some value in that delay, and comics. That's what they did, and so you had time to chew on it.
Gentleman, lady, and John. I see you. I see you, Scott. I see you.
Now, and I think you brought up an interesting point, and I'm going to bring this up because, one of my favorite characters is Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers. I've loved her throughout the years, right? She just ended a great 50-issue run, all written by Kelly Thompson, which was amazing. Kelly Thompson can tell a long-term story. Carol developed over those 50 issues, but now Captain Marvel's going to the same formula as Silk and all these other characters. 5-issue minis here, a 5-issue mini there. And don't get me wrong, I really loved Exterminators, which I thought was more fun than it had a right to be. I was like, oh my gosh. I was just hoping for the best because Dazzler was in it and I loved it.
Right.
But there's not the long term, right? And I like and I hate them for the same reason. I like a 5-issue mini because it's a complete story and I can have it.
Right.
But also, you kind of miss those days where every month you're waiting to get your book, and for years because you just had to get the next part.
Yeah.
Especially those X-Men books, man, where there were some big cliffhangers. All the inner turmoil within the team all the time. It wasn't always perfect. It wasn't just we go out and we all know our place. It was
right.
A lot of inner strife.
But if you look at I just finished collecting the original Miss Marvel Chris Claremont run, and what a great long form storytelling there was going on there, where he was able to introduce characters like Mystique and Rogue and Destiny and have this kind of arc, this epic story that even when it got cut short, he was able to bring some of those characters right into his Uncanny run where he was already rocking and rolling, and then continue the evolution of some of these iconic X-Men characters.
Right.
Destiny and Mystique. Can you imagine an X-Men universe without those
There's
ladies?
not really. There's a lot of it collapses.
Yeah.
Or even Magic. Magic wasn't a big deal back. She was just Colossus's little sister, forgotten about.
Dude.
Now she's like this major key player.
Absolutely. And when they make that New Mutants movie, of course, she's
all
the
those
one that they push forward.
Right.
On that. I enjoyed that. I just watched it again a couple weeks ago. I really liked that movie.
I've only seen it the one time, but I mean, I don't think it achieved, but much like all the X-Men movies, I don't think any one of them ever hit the nail on the head perfectly. And there's lots of room for creating a masterpiece in that world.
Right. I thought it was,
I was entertained. I was entertained
the way that we're going.
Yeah.
Look, I'm very thankful for them because it means we can only get better. Right. So, because, a part of that inner child always wants to see your stuff get put on the silver screen.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a shame if it's shit, but still, it's like your people got their time. And so that I actually got to see comic characters. I loved X-Men, and it was so awesome and magical. And to see that really come on screen, oh, that's so gratifying, man.
Getting to see Hugh Jackman come running out of the Canadian, where he's got
Patrick Stewart.
He's got the whole helmet thing that Barry Windsor Smith designed for him, and he's running through the corridor. I'm like, fuck, that's great. I never thought I would see that live on screen.
Just his introduction in a cage fight. You're like, that. I mean, how perfect is that?
Yes.
And then that headbutt, tonk.
Yep.
And him opening the beer with the claw and just hey, bub, the bar scene, and you're just like,
oh, when he cut the guy's shotgun in half, you're like,
yes. I mean, just all of it,
And then how good was Logan when they just let them run wild with the character, let him be as brutal as he would be?
Oh my god,
that's when he was the best.
That slow motion scene in the hotel when he's just the guy's skull and everything. You're like, whoa! This
when
is
he
what
wakes
you
up
waited
naked in the past
30-something years to see, right?
Yep.
Caroline.
Sorry,
I hear you, Milt.
So
I that's still a guilty pleasure movie for me. I still
good Howard the Duck movie.
Yeah.
I mean, it has Tim Robbins, I guess.
And I thought, what's her name that played Jean Grey? She also played
Famke Jensen.
Famke.
Yeah.
Oh, she was so. I loved her as Jean Grey.
Xenia Onatopp.
Yeah, she likes.
I've always
stay
loved
on top
Famke.
of
My
things.
introduction to her was Lord of Illusions, and I remember her.
Oh,
coming on
yeah,
screen
with Scott
that one
Bakula?
dress.
Was that
And you
Scott
were just
Bakula?
like,
I
Wow.
thought she was a better fucking Phoenix than old girl that was in the Phoenix movie. What's her
Yes.
name?
Yeah, the Sophie
Game
something.
of Thrones girl.
Yeah, married to one of them Jonas boys.
Yeah. Sophia Turner or something like that.
Yeah.
Sophie Turner, yeah.
Sophie
I
Turner.
mean, she wasn't like awful, but like I liked Famke better.
Yeah,
Well,
I agree.
I mean, she
And Rebecca
I don't know, she's
Romaine,
more
too, as,
adult.
Oh my God! What balls did she have to get painted blue naked? She had a perfect body. She was fucking perfect, dude,
Yeah,
She's
you can't
perfect.
hide anything.
and owned it.
Yeah.
She
And she
goddamn
was
owned
athletic
it.
in it too. She was.
Oh,
Well, Jennifer Lawrence too. Jennifer Lawrence went
yeah,
down that
I mean,
road
look, you got some cojones to be able to just like do that, dude.
too. Yep. And
All
thank you, Paul. I had to throw some Green Lantern in here, so I got Sinestro's hiding right there.
I'm sure like every 12 to 15-year-old male like really appreciates the dedication to that role that both of those women, showed.
Absolutely.
All right, so you just mentioned it because we talked about a half hour about X-Men, which I'm sure we could talk for the next 3 days on it. But let's switch over to Green Lantern a little. Quite the dichotomy, right? Is it what attracts you to the Green Lantern? You have the X-Men, and then Green Lantern is something completely different, right? This hot pilot guy, and he gets gifted this ring.
Right.
What connects you to him as a character? And which
There's-
Green Lantern is your favorite?
Yeah, so I am a John Stewart fan. I like John a ton, but I think I first fell into it with Kyle Rayner, and it was that was the era when I was reading it originally, the Kyle Rayner era. The idea that there you go.
That's the next whack hackly.
Yeah, for sure.
That's the next slab shot. You need to do a paint it blue and
You get blue paint on everything.
No, I want to see Lee painting John Blue now.
It'd be a Smurf.
I gotta shave
I'm getting
first. It's
turned
gonna
on,
be
man.
complicated.
Anyway, Green Lantern.
Yeah, Kyle Rayner, it was interesting to have. I mean, obviously the earlier Rayners were all soldiers, but Kyle was an artist, and to have this concept of it's not necessarily that you're a soldier to be a Green Lantern. Obviously, you're a policeman in some ways, but it's more the will inside of you, the strength of will inside of an individual. I found very interesting, and I'm very attracted to villains who have a point of view that I can understand. So Sinestro is a phenomenal character because he understands that fear motivates people better than almost anything. And he understands the power of fear versus will. And I find him to be a captivating villain because you can sympathize with him that in the world's darkest moments, we're being led around by our fears. We're not being led around by our greater impulses, right?
Right.
And I love seeing villains have to deal with the repercussions of the fact that they're driven by something that makes sense, but they're driven to do it in such a horrible way, right?
Right. A very Magneto.
He's the Magneto of the DC universe, and I find them both very fascinating characters.
Now that was a bright spot. Now I don't hate the Green Lantern movie like everybody else. I enjoyed it.
Oh no, because Mark Strong is freaking amazing.
Mark Strong was a great. When you had
perfect.
that tease of him as Sinestro at the end, I wanted that second movie so bad just to see him play that character.
Yes. I honestly think he is one of those actors that you could just keep him and keep playing him out. You could use him again and again and again because he's a man of great. There you go. And then of course, I had some of that 90s Green Lantern stuff, and then fell back in love with it with Jeff Johns, obviously, and that era of the what he did with Sinestro Corps War, what he did with Blackest Night. I think that was definitely a chance for me to get a bit broader understanding of what had the Green Lantern universe had become. But I always loved Kilowog. I think is still one of my favorite lanterns. I got my little Kilowog, Lego guy. You poozers got to know that everybody needs that hardcore teacher who believes in you, but is not going to take your lazy crap, right? They're going to push you to be your best because they know what you can actually achieve. So among my favorite Green Lanterns is probably Kilowog, but just because he's the guy that trained all these poozers. Like every single one of the Green Lanterns that amounted to anything was because of this guy right here. He's the drill sergeant that everybody needs, to push them a little further than they think they can go.
John and I got to, I think it was last year actually when we talked to Daryl Banks.
Yeah.
He was at Heroes Con, and he was telling us about how, because immediately John pulled out his books to have him sign, and it was the Kyle Rayner series, and I think for me the biggest thing was this guy's an artist, like you said. His constructs are going to be phenomenal. He's going to be creative. It's not going to be just a baseball bat anymore. He's going to pull out these massive submachine guns and everything else. But he was talking about the consequences with the whole girlfriend in the fridge scenario.
Yeah.
And he drew it one way and he presented it to him, and they were like, "Oh no, we can't publish that. That's too gruesome." And he's like, "Really?" And he's like, "Yeah, you got to clean that up." So then it's like this leg hanging out, I think, in the final thing, and he thought that was way more gruesome, but they were okay with that. They're like, "Yeah, this will work." And he's like, "Are you kidding? This is just as bad, if not worse, because there's, But yeah, it was the first time I ever noticed that DC. That was rough. I mean, the villain killed this person.
They did it dirty, really dirty.
Yeah.
Now I want to talk to you about the Green Lantern and Green Arrow series too, because you take this cosmic policeman, and then you put him with a street level archer.
Yeah.
So what do you think of that series, and did it work with the dichotomy of the two characters and what they represented?
It only works because they play perfectly on the buddy cop, they have two very different personalities, right? And I think that when you have a duo in some kind or another, whether it's the Murtaugh and Riggs or or Batman and Robin or whatever, you need differing perspectives, and then playing on that becomes the
almost
entertainment,
polar opposites,
right?
Two core values in our.
Yeah.
And you look at something like the Kitty Pryde and Wolverine miniseries, where you're putting two people together that are very different, and then forcing them into the same scenarios where they question one another's perceptions. And I think that's the truth of life, right? We grow when we're around people that push us to question our beliefs and question where we're coming from. It's easy for me to sit and judge through my laptop someone else's life on the other side of the country, but I'm not living their life. I don't know their world. When I'm in it with them and I can appreciate their struggles and their successes, it's a very different dynamic. And of course, I think the combination of Green Arrow and Green Lantern, I think brings a certain perspective and hotshot attitude that I think comes from this experience he's had living up in the clouds, living in outer space, flying his jets. He's not a street level guy, and I think
not in the least. Yeah,
you mix him with Green Arrow, I think you find something that they start questioning one another in a really interesting way.
And Green Arrow, that is a much more helpful version of a Bruce Wayne, right? A guy with all the money that's putting it actually towards helping everybody.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And
he's not putting it all into toys. He's actually putting it where it's helping people.
So I think that's what makes that series work. And I think the writer knew what they were doing, pairing them together, and then played on that discrepancy.
Yeah.
Now, Jax is picking on you here because Jax is hilarious. But, that's one of the things when they get it right in writing comics and when people understand, things that happen in life.
And I think and that's what Son of a Bruce is saying with Booster Gold and Blue Beetle. I think you put Ted Cord and Booster Gold together, I think you get something very entertaining. You can try, Chris, but it's not going to work. Booster and Blue Beetle work together really well because they question each other beautifully. And I think I'm still waiting for just a phenomenal Booster Gold, Blue Beetle, time travel through the eras of DC, like comedy, buddy comedy movie. I want a road trip through DC history with those guys.
Right. Well, and one of the things too is when a writer's writing, right? And you have to understand, and you mentioned it, like you can't put yourself in the shoes of somebody across the world and understand what's going on, right? Because it's easy for someone to go from where they are. Oh, I would make this decision when you don't even know what options were available to the person that had to make the decision they were making. You don't even know if the thing you say you would do was even an option for them at that time.
Right.
You don't know what they were facing.
It's that armchair quarterback mentality that I think it's easy to judge, and it's easy to tell people how you would have done it so much better, but it's harder to live the moment. And I think putting characters of differing perspectives together creates drama and of course pathos, right? Character growth.
Right. Now, let's talk about you as a teacher in comics, right? Now, have you incorporated comics into your classroom teachings at all ever?
I have, and less like DC Marvel superhero comics. There's a whole amazing. So when people tell me that like comic books are dying off or whatever, I'm always like pointing them to some of the most popular writers of this era. I think you look at some of the talented people creating graphic novels these days, and they're not doing superhero stuff. They're doing stuff that kids relate to. There's some really phenomenal products being made out there. And, you go to the Scholastic book fairs, still a thing. It still happens. If you've got kids, school, elementary school age, and they'll come home with graphic novels. That's what they're going to find. That's what they're going to buy. So my girls,
when I was a kid, I looked forward to those little catalogs you would get.
Yeah.
Like I would bring it home with so much hope in my heart for getting some stuff in there.
You look at things like Diary of a Wimpy Kid. You look at things like Cat Dog and Catman and what's his name, Dogman. Like there's Cat Kid and Dogman. There's so many books out there that are just graphic novel, comic strip, comic book stuff for kids, and kids eat it up. We have all the same interests. It's just maybe not in single issues like it was when we were kids, but instead it's these collected forms. They read a whole story and enjoy it. So many great books, but not necessarily that.
Right. A little too adult.
One of my favorites. There's a fantasy series for elementary school kids called Amulet, and my kids were obsessed with it. Every single year in third grade, I had a full set of the series, and there was always a new one coming out each year. And the kids loved it. They were obsessed, and they understood the form, and they could get into the story. And it was not a superhero thing, but they loved it.
And it creates better readers, right? Because you're giving them something they're interested in, so their reading skills are going, and they're reading stories that have situations in them that help them understand and navigate themselves through whatever they're going through in life too sometimes.
And my best friend growing up had dyslexia, and he and I both loved comics, and it was for different reasons, but for him it was because reading a giant set of words on a page was really difficult for him.
Right.
I had several students in that same boat, varying degrees of visual impairment or visual challenges that they were dealing with. And a comic book removes so much stress for those people. And they're still able to practice their reading skills. They're still able to gain knowledge from story. And they're not being robbed of that opportunity because somebody's judging the book that they read. Right. So you hit the nail on the head, Gary B. And in a lot of my conferences with parents, I bring up the two eyes of reading for young kids, and it's interest. Are they interested in what they're reading? And then the other one is independent reading level. You got to figure out where their skill is, where they are independently, where they don't need anybody to explain it to them. They don't need anybody to help them. There's obviously other levels that they should be trying to push at, but the independent reading level is where they're having fun. So if you find a book that's in their interest level and at their independent reading level, don't stop that. Don't get in the way.
That was to be honest with you, growing up, I don't even know if they had testing for dyslexia, but my mother knew I had something going on that was wrong. And the one thing she noticed was the boys next door were significantly older than I was. And they gave the first I went over to, they had like, I don't know, they like, watch this. We're going here and you're going to watch him. And they were like, you sit here and here. This is a book for you to read. And it was XMen 77 with no cover. It was just the book. And I was like, what is this? And I start, and I was not very, I don't remember how old I was, but I was not very old. And I would always be asking questions. I don't know what this word means. What are they doing here? But I read it from front to back. And when they let me have it, I read it again. And then I would go ask my mom questions about it. And she said, holy cow. And that's when she was like, okay, we're going to give him money for comics because clearly he'll read this, and a lot
That's
of
awesome.
the classics she would get to us. They were like little books that were this big that you would have words in it, but occasionally you'd have a picture. So like, Huck Finn, Tom Sawyer, all these different books, Count of Monte Cristo. I remember reading them in a short version because they had pictures.
Yep.
And so she was a big believer in what you were saying. Hey, if he'll sit down and read it, I'll buy it.
And so Son of a Bruce is saying the same thing. Like the benefits of kids that are struggling to read and having that little piece. The books are still complicated. The themes are complicated. The characters are complicated. But instead of having to read just a block of words, I'm able to use visuals combined with that. They will get there. They will get there. But when you judge it and then remove it, you're ruining the process. You're getting in the way of their ability to enjoy it. And Hulk Collector, if you want suggestions, I taught third grade, which is probably right near where your niece is, for a little over 10 years. And I got a bunch of ideas for graphic novels that she might really enjoy. So hit me up. That's my jam, brother. I'm on Instagram, John's Comics with, and you'll find me real quick.
Yeah, so that's great. I always love when I can hear that people who teach can incorporate comics in a positive way, because for a while there was such a stigma on them, and that stigma is really loosened up. It was always been odd to me, right, John, that people love art, they praise art. People love writing, they praise writing. But you put the two together, and all of a sudden it's this thing you're supposed to not like.
Yep, it's such a weird judgment, right? And it takes us back to my favorite show right now, Ted Lasso. Be curious, not judgmental, right? Why is it popular, and why are you hating on it? Are you hating on it because you view it to be beneath you, but that it's a lesser art form? Are you judging it because you feel like your kid needs to be reading Tolstoy? Or are you not having patience for your child wherever they are in their reading journey? Right? You need to be able to understand, like, growth doesn't happen instantly. There are steps. It's a ladder, and you can't jump rungs. You're going to have accidents along the way. So can I have the patience for my kid who's reading at their level? And don't get in the way. Like, if you see the kid reading, don't get in the way. Join, right? Talk to them about it. Like, leave your books out, leave your comics out, leave your stuff out. If they pick it up, that's a win, right? They're reading it.
Well, it's funny you say that too, because like I always loved to read, and my parents wouldn't edit anything I read. As long as I was reading, they didn't care, and I read voraciously. I've always had reading in my life. But like at 11 and 12, one of my favorite reads, and I had read it a couple times, was already Homer's The Odyssey. I loved it.
Ooh, wow!
And I still have a copy over here that I'll take out every now. I didn't like the Iliad as much as the Odyssey, but the Odyssey always connected with me.
Yeah.
But you don't want to get in the way of that, right? I mean, my mom could have been like, hey, we live near the beach. We go there all the time. Why are you reading Jaws? You're never going to go in the ocean again. Like, could have gotten in the way, but she saw her son, passionate, interested in a book. She backed off. She let him have it,
Well, it's funny you said that too, because at 11 and 12, I mean, my favorite author, and still to this day, was Clive Barker. So I was reading In the Flesh and, the Books of Blood and everything he was putting out back then.
Well, and Kate, my oldest, came to me. She was, I think, 13, and she's like, I want to read it. And I was like, okay, like, I love that you want to do this. You're a great reader, but I'm worried that this is going to cause nightmares. So let's build up to it. Let's try a few other Stephen King books and see how we handle horror as a genre. Because it's basically the last genre I've never really tackled with my girls. We've just started to scratch the surface of horror movies and horror comics and horror books. But she worked her way up to it, and bless her heart, she read the entire. I mean, I don't know if you know that.
It's huge.
It is like a freaking Bible. It's a massive book. And she read the whole freaking thing.
If she likes a big book, my favorite big book, it's like 1,200 pages, and a Magica by Clive Barker.
I've never heard of it.
I've never heard of it either.
It got released in like 2 different books and then combined, but it will take you through worlds and worlds and worlds. It is grand scale. It's epic.
Wow.
But what a piece of work.
I think the longest book I ever read was probably The Stand by Stephen King, which is also just a massive epic of characters and story. But I generally don't read books that massive very often.
John goes, I may have figured out Gary all wrong earlier, misjudged him. Now it's, wow, Gary's weirder than I thought.
You never know. You never know.
Look, Jackson, I'm way weirder than you think.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I was doing stuff at 11 and 12, trying to sell things just so I could keep going and buying more Clive Barker books.
But what a great thing to spend money on. And it's something my wife and I have always said about our girls, which is like, we're never going to scrimp on buying them books. Like I might pass on, technology and stuff like that for them that I don't think they need because they get plenty of it, whatever. But I'll never say no when they want a book. Like it's a book. Like enjoy it, read it.
And I'm the same with my kid. Oh, you want to read?
You should not back off of that, right?
Right.
Well, yeah. And I'm like, oh, you want to go to Barnes & Noble? All right, take all the time you want. Really look.
And I have I mean, I can't judge across nations or whatever, but I have one of the greatest LCS owners, and Kenny has 2 shops here in Southern California, one in San Diego, one a little north where I live. And he absolutely welcomes kids in his shop. He doesn't mind picking books up and looking at them. He is wide open to it. He has an entire bookshelf just of like children's literature and children's comics. And my girls, whenever I went to the shop, and I've been going to this shop since way before doing YouTube, they were welcome to just sit in that section and just grab books off the shelf and skim and read stuff. He had zero problem with it. And he knew their names when they came in the shop. Right. He would even order stuff that he knew they were into. So like they loved Greek mythology, and there were these like large magazine size Greek mythology comics that were being produced. Whenever a new one came out, it was in my box, and he'd be like, Kate, I got a new one for you. And he'd hold it out, and he's like, yes. So like, that's the stuff that you can't, I think that's the stuff that I think some comic shop owners don't realize pays dividends.
Right. And I did that too.
When you have a shop that people are like, don't touch the books. Like, what? It's not a freaking museum, man.
Right.
You want these people to come back. You want these people to feel like this is a place where they're welcomed and are excited to return. The second you treat it like it's a museum, you're losing your customer.
And there was a shop here, and I won't name it or shame it, but I go in, start looking back. Oh, you need help? No, I'm good. I know what I'm looking for. Come back 3 minutes. You need help? You need help? Look, no, I don't need help. All right, you know what? I'm gone. Bye.
And I've been in shops where they were legitimately telling people with kids not to come, bring them in. Don't bring your kids in here.
Feel anything? Relax.
Like, why do you want people not to?
These are future customers too.
And my girls, I clearly was spending money for them too, because I'd be buying my books, and then they would each grab a book, and I'd buy all of it. Like, it's important, to have them.
The reason I ended up at Rhinos, right? Now, I got out of collecting a few times. A lot of that had to do with LCSs, because the people just didn't know how to treat you as a customer.
Right.
Or, we'll guarantee you have this book if you put it on your pull list. Okay, put it on the pull list. Well, an issue comes out, it's instantly a $20 issue. Oh, guess what's not on your pull list because they sold it to their buddies, right?
Yeah.
Like, all right, if that's what you're going to do, I'm done. I'm guaranteed this book because it's on my pull list, unless you can make more money selling it to some random.
And
So,
yeah, my LCS owner never pulls those shenanigans.
Neither does mine, which is how I stayed with rhinos, right? If that book comes out and it's instantly a $20, $30, $40 book, I'm subscribed to it. I get it for cover price.
Yeah.
And the reason I ended up going with rhinos, right, is I remember I'm like, what is this? First, it was a little shop just tucked away in a corner, right? I noticed it out of the corner of my eyes, not a big sign or anything. I'm like, well, let's go in there. My son was still young, but he was like 6, 7. I wanted to get him into a shop. I'm like, well, look, they got to have some toys. We'll go in there. We'll look. You can look at some books. And I
Yeah.
took him in. You know, the staff was really friendly. Gave my kid a little toy on the way out. Oh, hey, thanks for stopping by and checking in with us, buddy. We appreciate you checking out the store, right? Something simple, right? But understands how kids' minds work and how parents look at how you treat their children.
Exactly.
Right.
And so go back again, right? Buy my kid some more stuff. Gives my kid another book, right? And then we're in there another time. Oh, this new trailer had just got released, and I can't remember the movie. It doesn't matter. Hey, you guys see that new trailer yet? No. Oh, come in the back. Come watch it. Hold it up to his computer. We watch the trailer together, right?
Awesome.
And then go back out. You know, cut back to 2 years later. His business is booming. He's moving. Hey, I'll help you move the store. Help him move the store
Oh,
to the
wow.
new location, much bigger location. Still the same morals, right? Someone walks in with their children. John, if you showed up with your girls tomorrow, he'd give them something. He understands. Or if a kid accidentally ruins a book, he doesn't think about it. Anything that's going to be worth anything anyway, it's up where they can't reach it.
Yeah.
Sure, there's some $20, $30, $40 books, maybe even up to $100 in the back issue bins that are labeled. But at the end of the day, you know,
He's playing the long game, man. He wants them in there.
The long game, but he's also respectful to people's families and kids.
Yeah.
You're gonna instantly turn somebody off if you bring your kid in and they're policing your child the whole time.
Look, so with that said, here's there are 2 LCSs.
I was going to say, Son of a Bruce
area.
has 2 great comments. His upper one and this one are spot on why I go to my LCS. So
yeah,
totally agree with these.
There are 2 LCSs, and one of them is the one I go to regularly here. That's my main LCS, and then there's another shop over where I work that's close to where I work. And one day after work, I don't go in that one very often because I don't feel like there's any good energy. They're not friendly. It's the guy is always at the computer and he like kind of looks up and is like, you know. So one day I go in there and I'm like, why does it smell like smoke? Somebody had gone in and there are cameras around, and the way he had it set up is he had his rows this way of new comic books. Somebody had gone in and tried to set a fire, and he was like, can you believe that? And I looked at the guy and I said, so you need to ask your question. Why would anybody want to set fire to your comic book store? That's the question you need to be asking. Can you believe
places they could go to do this, they picked your shop.
You know, why there's another comic book store, you know, 5 miles away, you know, downtown.
Wow.
And I said, so that's the question you need to be asking. This clearly was, you know, something to think about. Maybe you know, maybe your customer service sucks, and that's why they like lost it. But yeah, it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Well, and that's something I've noticed throughout all my years, you know, growing up. And a lot of comic shop owners are better at it now than they used to be. But a lot of them, there was no personality, and it was not going into a comic store is supposed to be a fun experience. And if you make it not fun, you're killing your business in the hobby.
Right.
And by excluding the children, they're the ones who are going to keep this industry alive later. It's not us. We're not going to be here.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well,
you know?
and Kenny, who owns my shop, he never wears shoes. Always wears sandals. He never wears shirts. He always wears tank tops. He's got like super long hair. He looks like he's gonna be selling weed and not comics. He's super funny, super relaxed. He's super Southern California guy to the T.
Right.
And just like so friendly to every person that comes in there. So interested in he almost every time I'm in there and someone walks in the door, he knows that person's name and he says it every time. And I'm so happy he's got a second location now and it's doing really well in San Diego area. He's not a businessman. He is just a customer service representative who really represents his business well.
There you go.
Perfect. All right. So, John, you're so easy to talk to, and I know that most of the audience disagrees. But we've been going for an hour and 15 minutes. I think you and I are kind of the same type of demented, so we get along well. But we'll wrap it up with some final questions here, and I think hour 15 is a good rewatch mark. We'll start with you, Jim. You got a last question for John?
Yeah. Where can I get that Nightwing piece behind you there on the wall? Yeah.
Okay, so this I got from Bruno Redondo and Tom Taylor when I saw them at San Diego Comic-Con. They had this is issue, obviously the first issue of their run.
Yeah,
they both signed. It's in gold at the bottom. You can see on each side of the bottom they've got their signatures. Funny story. I walk up to their booth and I'm like, oh, they've got a guy manning the booth. It's nice that they're busy. They can't do it. And I start talking to the guy and then I'm like, oh shit, this is Tom Taylor. I'm talking to Tom Taylor this whole time. I didn't know what Tom Taylor looked like. So I was like, oh my God, you're Tom Taylor. He's like, yeah, I'm Tom Taylor. And Bruno had apparently gone to do some meet and greet somewhere, a panel. And he had signed this, but Tom hadn't. And so I bought it and Tom signed it right there. Really, really nice.
Wow.
So nowhere. I can't get it anywhere.
I'm sure that they base, it's kind of like when you see Mitch Gerrits and Tom King at a con, they've got all these prints behind them, the different stuff. So I'd be surprised if they ever stopped selling this print. And they had gold Sharpies to sign it. Absolutely stunning. But yeah, nice. I was an idiot not realizing that it was Tom Taylor. Then I read his badge and it said Tom Taylor. I'm like, oh, crap. What an idiot.
You know what, though? It's probably the most genuine conversation he had the whole time because you didn't even know who he was. Everybody else is going, and everything. And you just walk up and go, hey, man.
I was like, I love these books. They're so good. I was like, oh, this series is so great. And I just bought this one from David Mack a little before, who I go any con I ever go to. If David Mack is there, I spend time talking to that guy. He is easily one of the most down to earth and amazing people. Absolutely phenomenal guy. And on social media, he will respond to anything you do. He will comment and say things about whatever you do just to be, so like he is just genuine, amazing guy.
Nice.
So
I love hearing that about creators.
And the funny thing is I've heard it from other creators about him where they were like, oh, he gave me my start. He introduced me to Marvel. He told Marvel to talk to me. He got me my go. He's this kind of a person to like the world.
Wow. There you go. Nice. Nice.
So I got both of these at SDCC last year.
Okay, don't rub it in.
Yeah, it's my first time. I live in Southern California. It was my first time ever going.
Oh, that's crazy. Yeah, no, I get it.
It's so expensive and so crowded.
Yeah.
I'm always like,
yeah, I understand.
Let's see. Now, we talked about a lot of heavy stuff tonight and good stuff. This has been a really fun in the hot seat, but I'm going to end it on a silly question because I like levity as well. So my last question for you, John, is if you could be killed off in any comic book, what comic book are you getting killed off in? Who's killing you and who's writing your death scene?
Ooh.
Wow. Oh my God. You know what? I'm going to go modern current indie. I'm going to say Rodney Barnes kills me in Philadelphia. He has I Want to Die being killed. John Adams' wife, Abigail Adams is a vampiress, and she kills me. She drains my blood, and I die at her sexy feet. I die right there on the ground.
Wow, he really going into that.
Philadelphia, Abigail Adams kills me. Yes.
See, and I thought he was going to die between Storm and Jean Grey.
I mean, obviously, I would love to reenact, the death of Jean Grey, but Storm is holding me instead of Scott holding Jean. Obviously, amazing. But no, I'm gonna go. We haven't talked enough indies tonight, and I love Philadelphia and vampires. Lots of people dying. So let's let Rodney Barnes kill me. Rodney and Jason's Sean Alexander, the artist, they would nail that.
Nice and gruesome,
Awesome.
huh?
Yeah, a bloody vampire death.
All right, there you have it. John wants to get drained and
I haven't read any of those.
good
It's
answer,
a
John.
great. If you like a good vampire story, you give it a shot. Plus, it's basically Rodney pitched it to Image as like vampires meet Hamilton. Like that's basically what it is. It's really straightforward.
All right, so we're gonna go around the horn here. Jim, what's coming up for you, buddy?
You know what? I am currently in the process of going through my books and trying to put everything away, especially everything that I got at Heroes Con. So I'm basically doing a lot of reading and not a lot of video. And I do want to get with you about doing a Shogun Warriors thing. You know, I got the whole set of Shogun Warriors. I know you have it. I think it'd be great if we did like a mini series, you know, do like the first 6 issues and talk about it.
Sure.
That type of thing. But I hadn't announced it or anything. I just wanted to run that by you.
I'm game for that. I haven't read Shogun Warriors in a couple years. I could reread that whole series again.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the one issue that they finished off in Fantastic Four.
And see, I don't have that one, so I need to go get it.
Why are we even talking about it?
I knew it was gonna. Yeah, I don't know when I'm gonna do any digging videos because we just haven't had any rain here, and it's really brutal to get out there and try to dig in concrete. Our rain has been really light amounts, and plus when it gets hot, it's not fun. When I go metal detecting, I want to have fun, and if it's 100 degrees and it's concrete, I'm digging a penny. It's not fun. So, you know, this is when I go into research mode and look for that 1700s house a lot of times. And then in the fall, I go and knock on the door and say, "Hey, man, how you doing? I'm Digger Jim. Can I talk to you for a minute?" Not like that, but you know what I'm saying.
How you doing?
pitch it.
I hope you say it just like
Digger Jim Joey.
Yeah.
All right. Coming up for me next Tuesday, we are not doing anything because it's the 4th of July. All right, but we're going to be on the 6th Thursday with a 10-1-1. We're going to have Hialeah Comic Bro on.
Oh yes.
I'll send you a link if you want to join.
Great guy. Yes, Raul needs to be burnt. One of the only guys to come on my channel and rip his shirt off and then walk around without any pants on, like on my show. And I didn't even notice. The best part about it is I didn't even notice that he was walking around in the background of his camera shot without any pants on. And it took me the next day. He said, "Did you notice, by the way, that I didn't wear pants for a whole section of the show?"
I'm still want to persuade this guy to come on a 10-1-1 and show some books, right?
Yes.
Chris from West Rocket. Well, I'm going to keep publicly pressing him until he comes on.
Absolutely. We need to have that.
And then Sunday on the 9th, I'm going to go to my comic shop and interview Chet, the owner, again after his Whatnot show. So we'll get to learn a little bit more about Chet and his business, and we'll tour the store again. It's changed some. So we'll have a lot of fun with that. And then on the 13th, In the Hot Seat, we have Who Dat. And we got to reschedule his 10-1-1 because unfortunately that one had to get canceled. They were having some storm issues.
Sure.
Snobby ass storm canceling. I know there's been a lot. We just got hit with the smog again from Canada in the last couple of days.
Ooh, man, that's been rough.
Yeah. But so we got a lot of good stuff coming up. Now, John, what's coming up for you?
So we just hit summer vacation time for teachers in the world, and that's my dive into comic reading. I all year long I read all my individual singles every week, so I'm always up on the issues I buy. But I buy a ton of trades. I bought this omnibus, the new X-Men by Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely. I have a ton of stuff to read. So I spend the summer trying to catch up on all the collected editions I've been buying. I'm also trying to do a series of videos on Ted Lasso and my obsession with Ted Lasso. I've done it for, I did the same thing for The Wire. I did it for Lost. I had a bunch of friends on, and we just basically hacked into the themes and deep comments about these shows. There it is. So my goal is to do a whole series of live streams on different themes from Ted Lasso, whether it's divorce or mentorship or some of the big themes in that series. So I'll be commenting on the books I've been reading, and then I'll be posting fun streams with friends talking about Ted Lasso.
Nice. Sounds like a good time. Now, guys, any of you that are watching on the rewind, because I know the people in the chat are sub to you, John's links are in the description below. So click on there, go over to his channel, his IG, give him a follow and a sub, and check out his future content and his past content. And if you're an X-Men fan, well, check out the X-Men show he does. He goes into deep details. And
we're about to start. Yeah, we're about to start the, in come in the fall, we're going to start the 4th volume. Issue 176 is where we are. Sadly, we're getting into the Romita Jr. era. So
blocky X-Men.
Love it or hate it, we just finished Paul Smith's amazing underappreciated era. We're getting into the John Romita era now.
Nice. And I feel like we barely scratched the surface tonight. We'll have to have you back again.
I'm happy anytime. If you need a substitute, you just call it in.
Right? Excellent. All right, guys, I want to thank everyone in the audience. We had a fantastic audience tonight. Thank you guys so much for coming out to support me, the channel, my co-host Digger Jim, and of course our guest John. Really appreciate everybody coming out. If you're watching,
Lady Fantastic too. Thanks Caroline for popping in.
Yeah, she had to go play some Mario Kart, so we had to go for that. She's very competitive.
She's very competitive. Unbelievable.
Yeah, getting to know Caroline has been one of the best things the last year.
I guarantee you, K-pop is involved in there somewhere.
Oh yeah, K-pop and her play and a couple others. I think Bleeker's on the Mario Kart circuit with them.
Right.
But, great show, Jim. Thanks again for being the wingman. John, thank you for coming on. I think you've appeared on my channel so much now, you're almost a regular.
Hey, I'm happy to join anytime. And yeah, thanks Jim for coming on and hanging out again, brother.
Absolutely.
And Absolutely. You know how we like to end this stuff. Keep it casual.